right. So, Alan Sweeney, the Crom. First of all, thank you so much for agreeing to chat with me here. I appreciate it.
No, that's no problem at all. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a couple of months ago now that I spoke with Jake Dollery, he's on Radio Wigwam, but at the time I actually didn't even realize that. I just heard his music and thought, wow, this is great. I'd love to speak with this guy. We talked about the fact that he's a DJ on a couple of shows on Radio Wigwam. And then when we finished the conversation, I said, I'd love to chat with you again. And he said, if you want to talk to somebody who's interesting and is making great music, you need to talk to this guy, Alan from the Crom. So he was the one who suggested I reach out to you.
Yeah. I didn't even have to pay him that much money for that plug either. Which was great.
How
So
much is a Guinness in one life?
exactly. No, do you know what? No, Jake's a great guy. We met Jake 2 years ago. Well, no, not even 2 years ago. Last January, actually, January 23, at the Radio Wigwam Awards in London. We didn't know him before then. He presented our award on stage. We won the Best Indie Rock Act at that awards, and ever since then we've become quite firm friends. We saw him again in London this year. We were down there. We played at the awards this year, and we've just remained friends with him. He's a great guy. He's releasing good music. He's a good guy to know. Really personal friend now. Yeah. From being a guy who presented us an awards to a personal friend, it's been a good journey.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying because, actually that happens with this podcast sometimes. I'll talk to somebody because they're making interesting music, because they have an interesting perspective on music. And then from there it becomes this friendship. I can see that with Jake. It was really nice to talk with him. He's a really interesting guy. And, as we've both said, his music is great as well. You guys played in actually that London performance at the pre-show was your London debut, right?
It was, yeah, not only a London debut, it was a debut in England, full stop. We hadn't even played in England before. So to play in London in a famous venue like the Bedford, where people like Ed Sheeran and Amy Winehouse, they started off in the Bedford. So yeah, loads of people have played there. The Clash over the years, loads of people. So it was. Yeah, for an England debut, it wasn't half bad, I think.
Yeah, just the list of names, I was like, wow, that
Mhm.
must have felt amazing. I can't even imagine. So that's pretty cool. Really cool. And I mean, you've mentioned the Radio Wigwam Awards, but actually you guys have won. I mean, for the fact that you guys started in 2019 as this group, is that right? 2019?
Yeah, pretty much. The very end of 2019. So, but then, the world obviously changed then for a couple of years, as you know. So we weren't able to get up and running. But I was writing songs in that time. And just yeah, it's just been crazy. Like the last 18 months has been really quite crazy to think that songs I'm playing, writing in my house, are getting played and winning awards. I mean, just today, we're number 4
I saw
on
that.
an Australian radio station's top 10 chart today. So it's really mental because I was in bands before, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and before the internet thing came about, we were putting, tapes and jiffy bags and sending them away and stuff, and never hearing anything back ever, you
Yeah.
know. And now with the internet, it's easier to get your stuff out. Although in some respects, while it's easier to get your music out there, there's so much music now because everybody can do it. There's so many great bedroom musicians now. So it's about how you cut through above everything else, because there's so much choice now in the world than certainly than there used to be.
Yeah, I find myself having this conversation with a couple of different people because I was saying the same thing. Like back in the 90s when I was in bands and we were doing recordings and trying to, sell cassettes, literally cassettes at live shows. It was really hard to be able to afford to make that cassette, and CDs were like kind of off the table for us for a while because it was so expensive to do. But as much as that was difficult, the new challenges today are that everybody and their brother can create music, and some of it is getting to be really slick and really good. Like I'm a music teacher here in China. I'm in Shenzhen,
Oh,
and we have a course at our school we call Music Digital Creation. And, when we first started and we showed the kids Ableton, we started off with GarageBand, showed them Ableton. And from that point, a few months in to the year when when they were doing these music creations, I was like, are you kidding me? This is amazing. This is like professional quality. And they're starting to think about things that you guys do, like this stereo panning, and they're thinking about the 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 limited spatial like audio space that you have on a recording. Like, how did that happen in a couple of months? So you think if there are a couple of students who are just doing that for a class project, imagine people who are passionate about it. And I mean, some of them are, so I don't want to take away, but there's amazing stuff out there. So the competition is huge. And in that environment, in a couple of years, you guys have won a stack of awards. Like, people are getting it, what you're doing, the quality of the songs, which I want to talk about specifically in a moment, and
mm.
the quality of the recordings. I mean, I have to say, one of the songs when I was listening, and I was just listening on my phone, it wasn't like I had super, studio headphones or something. Don't worry, stick to the plan.
The devil's in the detail. The writing's on the wall. You must have saw it coming. You were headed for a fall. The hens all in the hen house, frightened half to death. Here comes that wolf again. They can feel his icy breath.
First of all,
Yeah.
I love that song. It's a great song. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, thank you.
But then
Um,
something happened when I was listening to that. And in the first verse, you have like a high guitar sound and you have the harmonies going and stuff like that. And I found myself literally just holding my phone, looking at the screen, and I'm listening. And the sounds were like jumping out at me. It was almost like the Atmos surround sound mixes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you guys didn't do
Mhm.
that, right? Did you? Sound with
No,
your
nothing like that.
that it's just stereo separation. And honestly, I got one moment when that high guitar comes in and the harmonies and stuff. I felt like I was sitting in the middle of the band. It was mixed so well.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, we're very, very lucky. We've got a really, really talented producer in Perth, where we are from. He's he plays just about every instrument. And David Macfarlane, he has done all our recordings. He did both our albums. Without him, he's always got the best out of us. He's come to see us live, and he knows. And it's interesting, because. There was somebody came. We just played a gig there on Friday night. Hence the glasses today. I've had a rough weekend. Let me tell you. If I had these glasses off, you'd get a fright. I'm not being cool. I'm being practical. And so a guy from Glasgow came to see us on Friday night, and he never saw us before. I just got into our music. We booked a hotel in Perth to come and see us, and he said that he couldn't believe how much our live set sounded like the recordings, and we worked very hard on that. All the stuff in the recordings and all the stuff we play, we don't play to, like laptops and backing tracks. It's all done with guitars and pedals, foot pedals, like old school foot pedals. I mean, I use Boss. I've got an Ibanez Tube Screamer, quite basic sort of pedals, but and I play a synthesizer as well. So yeah, and David, the producer, he really gets the best out of us every time. And we call him the professor actually, because he is like a professor. He'll hear things. And on that track you mentioned, "Don't Worry, Stick to the Plan." A lot of people have asked us, what's that plinky plonky sort of sound in it?
Oh,
That
the
was
glass
water
bottles.
It was glass bottles, yeah, filled, tuned to the track, and our drummer was hitting them with a beater and everything, and all of that stuff. It's just Pro Tools. It's Pro Tools in the recording studio, and that's it. But he's a gifted producer, great musician, good friend, good guy to have on board. So if anybody was going to be credited as being the fifth member of the Crom, it's absolutely David Macfarlane. Absolutely.
That's amazing that you said that because I actually, as I was listening to your music, I had written that down because I have the four names of the band members who we should probably mention in a moment. And as I was listening, I thought, no, this guy, and I did the research to find his name afterwards, but I was saying this guy has to be considered like the fifth member. This is, it makes me think I'm looking at your cup there with the Beatles and, you know, George Martin. It's
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's along those lines where the Beatles were great and they wrote great songs and they went on to write great songs after the Beatles. So nothing to take away from that. But what George Martin got out of a four-track recorder with those guys is just mind-blowing. So yeah, I was really impressed by the songs, but also the sound of the studio recordings. And that would have been one of my questions is, are you able to recreate that sound?
Yeah. I mean, for all intents and purposes, yeah. We obviously, there's overdubs and things like that, and there's a lot going on in the tracks. But yeah, the first album particularly. So, well, just while we're talking about this, the first album was more I wanted the first album to be a bit more raw, because we were just coming out the traps, the album's called Right on Cue, and then like here we are. It was also a line from a track in the album, Outside Your Window.
The race is won, though you could run much further, but you stopped right on cue. No need to make things harder when all you gotta do is look outside your window.
That one to be a bit more raw, so we can very, very easily replicate the first album. The second album is called Evolution for a couple of reasons. We've got a different lead guitarist now from the two albums. I know we'll discuss the members in that shortly, but a different lead guitarist. The second album I thought sounded a bit more grown up than the first one, a bit less sort of frantic. It was a bit more sort of nuanced, I think, than the first album. So the band had evolved literally. One guitarist, now somebody else.
Right.
I maybe evolved a bit with the songwriting process, and when Dave Macfarlane asked me what I wanted for the second album, I went, just throw everything at it. However, every overdub and every track you hear, there was nothing done that we didn't play ourselves. We played everything, whether it was hitting wooden blocks or claves or castanets or you name it, like just everything we did ourselves. So there was a bit more time spent on the second album, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how it's turned out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you should be, and it's really interesting because I feel like, I have in mind some questions that I want to ask you, and you've that's the second one that you've answered without me asking it, because
All right, yeah,
because I felt like the first album, it's great and raw, a little rough around the edges, and I mean that really slightly. I'm being super picky on that, but. What I mean by that is that has something great to it. I love rawness. I was speaking with PMAD. I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
Yes, I met the man. He was nominated in our category, January 23 Best Indie Rock Act.
Yeah.
So that's the first time we'd met him, but we've stayed in touch since then as well. So
Okay.
he's always very, he's always like, what's the word I'm looking for? He's always very complimentary to our band, we've stayed friends. And yeah, good guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Good guy.
We were talking about that. He was talking about trying to strike that balance between keeping the rawness of the sound, but also having, the right levels, and it's not like it'll, overdrive your speakers accidentally or something like that. Like he was talking about keeping it so that it's produced well enough so when it's played on the radio, it sounds great, but not losing that essence of the rawness of it. So I felt like with your first album, you guys did a great job with that.
I'm sick and tired of hearing all the stories that I pray and hope to God are all untrue. But you see, I know they are, because my friend, I know you. I heard you screwing somebody else's woman. You spread your love like a disease. Everyone can see through you now, and you're the one that's begging on your knees.
I just thought that even the way that you, Are You Seeing Anyone? The way that you EQ'd the backing vocals.
Cause you don't have the time for me. You don't have the time for me. I wanna find out what I've done. Are you seeing anyone? Take a look at what
So now is a good time. We should probably mention the rest of the guys. So you are Alan James Sweeney, the lead
Yeah.
vocals, rhythm guitar, piano, synthesizer. You have Dan Hardie, lead guitar.
Yes, he's a lead guitarist. Yep.
Yeah. Frankie is your brother, Frankie Sweeney.
Yes, he is. Yes, for his sins. Yep. Yep.
And Lee Fitzpatrick on drums, percussion. So Frankie and Lee, they do most of the backing vocals. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Really, I mean, that's one of the areas that I was listening to that I thought it sounded great on the first album. Are you familiar? There's a Canadian band. So I'm from Canada, actually.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's a Canadian band. There was a Canadian band called the Tragically Hip. They're so great. Unfortunately, we lost their singer a few years ago to a form of cancer.
Oh, right.
But their legacy is alive and kicking, especially in Canada. The reason I mention them is because the way that you managed the vocals, just the voices of Frankie and Lee singing anyway, but the way that you EQ'd the backing vocals and the way that you sort of panned it to one side, in that song, I think it's panned to the right, and it's like just the way you managed it, I thought, oh, that sounds kind of like we call them the hip. If you're
Right. Right.
you wouldn't call them the Tragically Hip, you'd say the hip. But
Mhm.
I'd love for you to give them a listen and just see. I know, I mean, you don't even know the band, so obviously you weren't trying to sound like the Tragically Hip, But I'd love for you to listen to them at some point and say, and whether or not you can hear what I was hearing there with the backing vocals being a similar style.
illusions of someday cast in a golden light. No dress rehearsal. This is our life. And that's where the hornet stung me. And I had a feverish dream with revenge and doubt. Tonight we smoke.
I think I'm what I was looking for is I'm desperate to know like if we sound like anyone. And the only other comparison I've ever heard was there was a musician from Perth. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. He was like a well-known guy in Perth. He was into his Americana and sort of country type music and stuff like that. He used to always say that we sounded like a Scottish band called Teenage Fanclub. And again, that's a name I've heard. But I couldn't tell you a name of one of their songs. I've not, again, I've heard of the Tragically Hip, I've heard of Teenage Fanclub, but I couldn't honestly, definitively tell you a name of one song. And so I listened to Teenage Fanclub and I was like, do you know what? Yeah, maybe. So, but that's great, like, because I don't know, like being a songwriter, you're afraid that you're plagiarizing someone or you've maybe subconsciously heard a riff or something. And so I always like to to be told, you know, who we're similar to, you know, so then I can check them out, you know, and see if, you know, so yeah, I like that.
If you can, I wish you would. Only if you feel you should. Bring your love and over. All wrapped up in circumstance. All stood up with taking stands.
Definitely, like, I understand what you just said. I've never spoken with anybody who said, yeah, I was really trying to sound like this other band. Nobody writes original music trying to sound like somebody else, but we do, because that's what we know, and it's just ingrained, you know. There's actually a great quote, Geddy Lee from the band Rush.
Oh yeah, I know them very well though, yeah. Yeah, I know Rush, great band. Yeah. Neil Peart, he passed away, didn't he, a couple of years ago, was it? Or,
he did.
Yeah, big loss, yeah.
Yeah, huge. Geddy Lee, and I've quoted this probably too many times at this point, but he has this great quote, and he talks about influences, and he says, you know, as you're learning music, just in general, as a listener and as a player, you hear all these influences, and little by little, they become part of your sound until finally you become so skilled at your craft that you step out in front of that, and that becomes your voice.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you listed the Jam.
Yeah. One of my favorite bands all the time. Yeah.
That, I mean, because their classic sound is playing a Rickenbacker through a Vox amp. You know, there are moments just sonically that gave me that impression.
No, it's Fender guitars I play. Dan, he usually played. Well, he started off playing sort of Les Pauls. But he's kind of more gravitated towards Telecasters and Stratocasters now, you know. So he had a shot, I think it was my Fender Jaguar or something like that, you know, and he's like, wow, you know, I want a Fender now. So it has been getting a bit more sort of, I don't know, a bit brighter, a bit more jangly, maybe in some essences, you know. Then Dan in the studio would go and overdub things, but maybe with the Les Paul, you know, just for a bit of heaviness, a bit of grit, you know. But yeah, as Fenders we playing. In terms of amps, he played like sort of, is it Selners and like really vintage amps. I played a Mesa Boogie in both albums actually. Okay. Great amp. So yeah, I've always stuck to the same equipment. I don't play a Mesa Boogie myself; it's too expensive to be honest with you to buy one. But the one in the studio was great.
Yeah, I just think overall you have this combination of like this rough, raw, I'd say almost angry attitude in some of the songs. I mean, ugly, you know. I mean, the line, "You fell down the ugly tree and hit every branch," that killed me.
Yeah, and they got stung by a bee.
When they got stung by a bee.
You look like you fell into the ugly tree and you hit every branch and then got stung by a bee. I really don't like it when you're looking at me, so stick a bag in your head. So
I love that attitude part. You know, it's very rock and roll, and I get it. And I think for just being a listener, there are moments that I totally identify with that. So I would go back and listen to, for example, that song and just feel like, yeah, you know. But then you have this other side where it's this like soft, I mean, you literally say seize the day, and you know, it's a very sort of enjoy your life message. The timbre of your voice, the timbre of the instruments, everything changes. You have this, I'll call it like a light and dark sort of aspect to all of your songs. I think that's a really interesting thing.
Let's look outside your window. If the sky is blue, let's seize the day. come running, you know I will. But if I'm the rain,
I think that might be partly because that's just me in general. You know, like there's some days I get up and love the world and the sky's blue and the grass is green and the birds are all chirping in the trees, and I'm thinking, wow, you know what, this is amazing. Then there's other days I'll switch on the news and I'm just like, what is going on? But just when you touched on ugly, the phrase, you've got a face that only a mother could love. I'd never heard that phrase before. It was an English DJ, Chris Moyles. He's quite big across here. He used to do the BBC One breakfast show. He was on Virgin Radio and stuff like that. I was listening to the radio one time, and I used to have a dog, a boxer dog called Pepper, and we'd rescued her. You know, she from this breeding farm. They bred her very young, so she had stunted growth, and she was a bit sort of, you know, not very conventionally attractive canine, you could say, you know, and so she was in my car one day, and I was listening to the radio, and Chris Moyles said to somebody, "Oh, you've got a face that only a mother could love." And I laughed, and I turned around and said to my dog, "Oh, I think he's speaking to you," right? And that's what that song was about. And yet, it's the one that I get asked most about, because it appears to be an absolutely scathing attack on an individual. It really isn't. It was written about a comment a DJ made, and my dog was in my car. And I just wrote a song about it. So it's not about a guy that's irked me. It's not about a guy who loves himself. It was just a whimsical, you know, funny song, I thought, but with a bit of, it's got a real bit of venom to it, but it's not venomous at all, you know. And I get asked about that. Who's the guy in Ugly? It's my dog, you know. And who was who was the greatest wee thing ever, you know. She was squashed face and all that, but you know. So yeah, that's the one I get asked most about, because it looks like it's a vitriolic attack on someone, and it absolutely is not.
Well, again, third question that I'm not able to ask, because that would have been one of my questions. I was thinking, man, what did that poor guy do? Like, you know, like, what did
it's like I'm reading your mind. I'm reading your mind here. You know, I'm preempting these questions. You know.
We started to talk about the evolution concept, you know, and the second album, it had, I felt like, more of that lighter, softer side, and it's reflected again in the recordings, which now you've explained to me that David Macfarlane, he actually goes to your shows and he knows the songs inside out, so that it's kind of like, I remember seeing this documentary about this group of people who were doing this social experiment. They invited photographers in to take photographs of this guy. They sat him down in a room, and he sat dressed in the same clothes. He didn't do anything. He just sat there, and they told a story.
You're about to meet Michael. He lives fast as a self-made millionaire.
You didn't have to dress up. It's all right.
You're going to photograph Michael. He's actually saved somebody's life. Michael is an ex-inmate.
Several different stories about the same guy sitting in the same place in the same clothing. And then they show the photographs that the photographers take, and they are vastly different.
It's like 6 different people. I'm not a fisherman. I am not an alcoholic. I've never been in prison.
It's how they take the picture. And I think it's along the same lines with music, is that if I were to try and produce your music, it would come out sounding very, very different. Whereas David Macfarlane knows your music, knows what you're going for, and he helps you translate that.
Yeah, I mean, just interesting what you said about that experiment. I mean, it's how you frame things, isn't it? I mean, I'm not a formulaic songwriter. I don't think to myself, I'm probably preempting, I get questions again here, but I don't think to myself, right, I want to write a power chord fast one today, right? Or I want to write a slow, heartfelt one today. What happens to me is, and I've said this is the honest truth, as honest as I can be. If I ever set out to write a song, if I said, right, there's my notepad, there's my pen, there's my recording device, whatever, my phone and my guitar, I'd be sitting there about 3 months later with nothing to show for it. My songs always come to me, and what I mean by that is, like, I could be at work, I could be out, and I'll get an idea for a lyric. It could even just be one sentence, like, "You've got a face that all your mother could love." Then I'm thinking, that's a good line for a chorus, you know. And then I'll go home and the lyrics will spill out based on that. I was always quite good at creative writing at school. I got good English grades and things like that. Other times I'll be just noodling on the guitar and I'll come up with a little riff or a nice chord sequence or something, and I'll just start humming along, you know, and then words will come out. So yeah, I couldn't, if you put me in a room and said, right, write a song, I could probably do it, but I'd be under duress and I wouldn't feel happy about doing it, you know. I mean, I can pick up a guitar right now and make a song up, you know, just lyrics and whatever else, could be nonsensical, but yeah, that's just how it has to happen with me. It's just inspiration bits come to me and then it just happens, you know. So
Yeah.
I'll take that if I can get it. If I go like more than 2 weeks and I haven't written a song, I start to think there's something wrong with me, you know, like I'm not inviting the universe into my head anymore. What's going on, you know?
I've lost the muse.
Yeah, I've lost it. I've lost my touch. I've lost it, but yeah, I'm certainly not a formulaic songwriter. I don't think to myself, right, okay, we need so many heavy, loud bangers on this album and so many sensitive ones. I just write whatever it is that comes, and my band are very good at interpreting that, you know. They're very supportive. If I come to band rehearsals with a new song, I don't even need to tell them now what to do. I'll play through it a couple of times. Lee will instinctively come in with drums. I used to, because I don't play drums, I used to sort of do that, right, this, it goes like this, you know, and tapping my thighs and all that. And he'd say, oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
My brother now has been with me now long enough that he just knows now, and Dan's just a powerhouse on the guitar, you know. So yeah. Sorry, I probably circumvented a few questions here, but I just
thought
I
was going to scratch that off the list as well. But no,
yeah,
I mean,
just very well.
It's all actually a chain, I think, because I've said several times that studying to be a musician didn't make me a songwriter. It just meant that those sounds that I hear in my head, I have the skill on different instruments to be able to translate that so other people can hear what's in my head, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And along those lines, what you said about the band as well, like for you to come in with an idea, and I mean, you said welcoming the universe, right? But that's what they're doing as well, because you could go in and one of them could say, no, this has to be this, you know? Whereas if they just let it roll how they feel it based on what you've said and what you've shown them, then they're welcoming that possibility as well. Because it says in a lot of the things that I've seen written about you guys that you write the songs, but it's a very collaborative process to bring it to the point of being able to perform or record it. And I think, you know, it's very lucky for them to have a songwriter that writes the songs that you do, and for you to have them to be able to interpret them without feeling like they have to steer it in a different direction in order to feel like they're part of the process. You know, they can know they're part of the process in the same direction that you're already going.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you know, Lee will be the one out of the other out of the three of them to maybe ask what the song's about. So I'll tell him, and the reason being, if he has an idea what the song's about, he can sort of put that feel into his drums, you know. So it's a strange one. I mean, I love drummers, right? I love drummers. I watch documentaries on Sky Arts. You know, there was one, Stuart Copeland from The Police did one. There's something about for the love of drumming, and everybody always says that, like, you know, Ringo, while not the most technical player in the world, he was the best drummer in the world, and that he played for the song. And I think Lee's like that. Lee plays to the song, but he likes to have an idea what the song's about, so that he knows what feel to put into the playing, if you know what I mean. So
absolutely.
Yeah, very lucky in that regard. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken with a lot of different groups, and recently I spoke with a group called Seems Like Tuesday, and Steve Tabilio is the drummer, and that was one of the things we talked about. Because he's a very skilled drummer. He has all the technical part of being a drummer, but he said
Mm.
that doesn't mean that I have to just play as fast as I can and make it as sort of, smash boom bang. You play to the song as long as what you play, and this is for all of us. If we play what serves the song will be stronger for it, rather than trying to be like the noodly guy.
We've got this new band. We think we're pretty good. Would you please let us play? Grateful if you could.
You were mentioning you're in the top 10 on Banks Radio Australia.
Yeah, they posted yesterday that we've been featured on their show, which was incredible anyway, for a band from Scotland to be played literally halfway around the world. And then, so to wake up this morning, it's like, oh yeah, in the number 4 in the top 10. That was quite special feeling this morning. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
fantastic. And I mean, when I look at the speed of things, like if you really think about it, more from 2020 to now, right? The awards, the performances that you're doing, the all of that stuff, and just what you've been creating. So, just the beginning of it's now last month because this is October now, but at the beginning of September, you put out When the Morning Comes.
yeah.
When the rest of the world is sleeping, I'm going crazy the whole night through. Your love's got me like a vampire, and I cross oceans of time for you. The universe sings to me sweetly, a gentle song inside my head. The melody suits me completely, but I'd rather see your face instead. When the morning comes, then I shake my head.
I heard that on Radio Wigwam recently. First of all, what can you tell us about that song? I don't know, whatever thoughts come to you about that song.
When the morning comes, a lot of the songs on the second album were to do with the relationship at the time I was going through with, the previous lead guitarist and things, leaving the band and stuff like that. And we've been friends from school, and it was a lot of things to do with, I don't know what I'm saying, I suppose, but, relationships breaking down and going to bed with someone on your mind and things, and not getting things resolved and that kind of thing. I mean, coupled with the fact that he himself was going through a personal breakup at the time as well. So that's basically what the song was about, somebody, and then obviously you turn the situations that you know about and you've heard about the situations you're in, and you can concoct a song on it. And it was basically just about a guy who was a little bit in turmoil, couldn't get to sleep at night, thinking about somebody, things on his mind, that kind of thing. So that was it. That was it basically, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, released as a single, I heard that, and so when I listened to this 2 songs, I listened the first time just to hear the song, and then on the second listen or so, I start to take down notes, and I'm gonna read out the notes to you that I scribbled down while I listened to the song.
Yeah.
I wrote down "In Your Face, Straight Ahead Rocker," and then searing guitar lead. There are guitar leads that have sort of attitude to them. Of course, we put distortion on them, and there are ways that we can do that. But whatever was happening, it would have been Dan playing that lead, not you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
holy cow. Like I put the word searing. It's like, first of all, it's huge distortion. It's like the way he bends those notes. It's like a Stevie Ray Vaughan type of bend. He's trying to bend it to the back of the guitar, kind of, you know. And
Mhm.
of course, you guys mixed it so that it's quite far in front of the mix as well. So it's really like
Yeah.
literally in your face, you know. And then the harmonies come in. I don't know. I mean, did you consciously mix this song differently than the other songs? It felt like the compression was a little tighter. The whole thing was really a different feel, actually.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So I had also written the backing vocals, the lines, and I knew specifically how I wanted it to be. I think it's in the third verse. I thought about calling the doctor to see if he could help my mind, but I already know the answer. I knew I wanted Lee to go quite high on that, and I wanted in my brother's voice to sort of almost. I know what you mean about the compression, and I wanted it to sound almost. Raucous, like a straight up rock and roll, but I also wanted it to feel quite claustrophobic as well. I wanted you to feel like you were quite, everything was in this box, and there's just
I
energy
wrote
just.
boxed in. I wrote boxed in.
Oh, did you? Oh,
I
did you?
did. I did.
Have I seen your note? Have I seen your notes before this interview today? No,
This is
because
crazy. Am I sharing screen and I don't realize? You messaged
yeah, yeah.
me.
I'm just looking down. I can see your notes there. But
That's
do you know?
amazing.
No, I really wanted that song to kind of embody anxiety a little bit, but with like a frenetic sort of energy to it. So yeah. So I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I mean, when I heard that, each of the songs has its own character. And what I love about that is that if you think of that in terms of like the song itself being like an actor, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the band
Hmm.
steps into this role, and you, all five of you, because I'm including David Macfarlane in this, all five of you understand the character, and then you follow through on that the whole way. So if it's when the morning comes, it's like, okay, we're feeling frustrated, we're feeling boxed in, we're feeling like we want to break out of this. And that guitar lead, like I'm guessing you didn't sit down and have that conversation. Play this lead like you're trying to break out of a box. Like, you know.
No, I mean, we all knew what the song was about and stuff. And whenever I listen to that song, I kind of can visualize a guy, not me or not anybody else that I know. I can visualize a guy just waking up in the morning and, with all bleary eyed and he hasn't slept well. And there's just a sense of, there's like almost bees buzzing in his head, type thing. And so it's just one of the ones, Dan just he instinctively knows what to do with that lead guitar. And some of the tracks that Dan was doing, and we tried out some lead sort of, recordings, and we tried other ones and stuff like that. Because the thing about Dan is he very seldom plays the same thing twice. So so but he knows it's always kind of there or thereabouts. So I mean, yeah, it was just he just instinctively knows what to do. There wasn't a great discussion based on play this, make it, come away with an audible representation of anxiety by any means. So there was nothing like that. It just happens.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. I do think that kind of synergy between band members, it's a really special thing, you know. I've played in a number of bands, and I have had that where I don't know, even in the live setting, I've talked about this before. The drummer would be playing on the ride, and then he hit the snare, and then suddenly he'd hit it just an eighth note sooner than he's supposed to, and I'd go, whoop. I was playing bass, and this is
Mhm.
Qingdao, China, which is another part of the country here. And he'd hit the snare a little fast, and I go, oh, something's about to happen, and I just be ready for it. I
Yeah.
I was the singer and bass player in that band, so I couldn't turn. I mean, I guess I could, but I didn't turn around and look at him to see like he'd make a sign or something. He did it all with audio, you know.
Mhm.
I imagine that's what's happening in the studio. If you have any piece of footage of your studio experience or your studio recording that you'd like to share, for me to include in here, I'd be more than happy to do it, actually.
Yeah, I've got video. Yeah, like I say, I recorded as much as I could.
Nearly over. Make time for the simple things in life. The simple things in life.
Yeah, I'm liking that.
There you go.
Yeah.
See a video of Alan.
It's a perfect segue because I have on Facebook, Kate Harris posted, there's a video of her singing. It's just
Here we go.
maybe you videoing through a window
Yeah.
while she's recording her line.
Exactly what you need.
I was recording her. That was just through the control room window. Yeah, just on my phone, you know.
I just thought
Right.
it's one of the things I miss about the fact that I used to do recording. Like my time as a musician in the studio was really in the 90s. It kind of ended there, you know.
Mhm.
It's not to say that I don't record things now, but being in a band and really making a push for, getting our originals out there and all that, it was in the 90s. And we didn't do that stuff. We didn't have phones. So like I don't even know how we would have done that. I guess you'd have to have like some $6,000 camcorder that, your uncle bought for you or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's so cool when I talk to someone like yourself who you've got the technology, you've got the ability, and it's your time now. So it's like it's really cool that you're doing that. And I love that idea of the possibilities of then going back and seeing that and reliving those moments,
Do you know what else is interesting? So, my first ever foray in a recording studio was, I think, 1997, and you just paid. I was only a teenager. You paid a guy. You didn't even know some money, and you got what you got at the end of the day. You're like, right, okay. But the thing with Dave is as well, so his recording studio is in the same complex where our rehearsal facility is. You go up, and because he knows us and he's friends with us as well, you're like, we've produced the two albums as well alongside Dave, so he's recorded us obviously, and contributed things and told us this sounds better than this, and we've taken it on board. But we've been at the desk with him every step of the way as well, producing things, and we mixed all the albums together with him as well. So we've had a greater control over that, and that makes a huge difference, as opposed to you've got so many, well, in your case dollars, but in our case pounds, and you go into a studio with somebody you don't know, and you've got maybe like a 4, 6, 8 hour window to get something done, and it's all done hurriedly, and you come out and you feel like, oh, I wish we'd sang backing vocals there, or I wish we'd done that. And it's a great thing to be able to control what goes out, and in that regard, that makes me happy, because what goes out is entirely what I hear in my head, entirely what I hear in my head.
And the fact that he has a personal interest in making that the best it can be, because I've been in that situation too, where, we're paying this guy more money than we have access to. We just had to like scrounge and beg to get that money. And you walk in, he's going to record you for the number of hours that you can afford. And when you leave, he's going to go out for dinner with his friends, and he forgot about our song before he left the door, So there's also there's vested interest, and I don't mean that in, some people use that in sort of the financial sense. I mean it like personal interest in it, So I do think that all of that just works together for a team effort, which is awesome. Question, what is Joseph Chambers' role in this? Is he the engineer?
No, so Joseph Chambers, he's a musician from Perth that has ended up working at the studios with Dave.
Okay.
And so Joseph initially, Dave asked if it would be okay. Joseph would like to record our guitars, the initial guitars recordings, before we went back for additional overdubs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we went, yeah, go for it. So Joseph's just a young musician that's learning the ropes in the studio. So he recorded their initial guitars, and he was happy as Larry. He was, bringing out, vintage heads and cabinets and all this stuff. And he was like a kid in a candy shop. He just wanted to be involved, and we were happy to have him involved. So of course, Joseph, I credited Joseph as well, because he did record the original guitars. So.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. And the team grows. Like we've mentioned the names. So I said it was a great segue to talk that you were recording Kate Harris, and then I dropped the segue. So Kate Harris sings the backing vocals on What You Need.
Yeah, some of them. So again, most of them is Lee. But I, we'd always heard like a sort of female vocal in there, and so Dave suggested bringing someone in. And we knew Kate. She's another musician on the sort of the scene round about where we live. And we just asked her, and then she came. She played a little bit of piano as well. You can maybe hear on the track, maybe just at the end. She did a lot more on the day than ended up in the final track, but only because there was too much in the end, But what she brings to it just brought just another little level to it, just unexpected, So she did a great job.
I take the hurt and the pain, not even take the strain, but I will be exactly what you need.
I was curious about that because I saw, 4 guys, and then I saw, no, 5 guys. And then on Silver Spoon, you have additional guitar, Joel Robertson.
Yeah, so Joel was the previous guitarist. So he recorded Silver Spoon, which was always going to be on the second album. But it was just at the time he sort of left, Dan came in. So Silver Spoon was already recorded before the main body of work on Evolution. So that's why he's credited on that, yeah.
Well, look at you, girl, you're something in nature. It's how you grew, what you always knew. I look at you and I see certain danger. You turn the tricks trying to get your fix. Well, look at you, you're never short of money. Your trust fund is bigger than King Kong. You're living in the land of milk and honey. I'm in the colorist where I belong.
Kate Harris, I just have to ask, have you heard, you probably have, she does sort of a jazz version cover of I Will Survive, the old 70s classic.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
At first I was afraid, I was petrified, kept thinking I could never leave without you by my side. I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, but I grew strong. I learned how to carry on, and now you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you here with that.
First of all, her voice is incredible, but then her voicings that she does on the piano, I'm like, so I spent part of this past week learning how to play some of your songs because I was curious about, the thing. And I think I'm going to go back and try to learn how to play her version of I Will Survive because it's just a great, I don't know, she's got a really soulful voice. It's really sincere, which I think sits really well with what you guys do, because that was one of the themes that I wrote down as well. I wrote down a couple different themes, the, rough versus seize the day happy guy. And one of the things was sincerity. I feel like whichever side of that coin you're doing, it just comes straight through that you mean it from like the bottom of your heart,
Well, yeah, I think so, because I suppose every songwriter, everybody with artistic tendencies tends to be a bit bipolar anyway, I think, and I mean that in the best possible sense. There are days where, I can go on the odd rant. I can go on the odd rant and stuff on social media and that, and I can, but one thing I am is I'm sincere, or at least I hope I am. I don't like any injustice of any kind in the world. I don't like people sort of, taking the mickey and things like that. And and so some days I've maybe got a harder demeanour on than others, but at the end of the day, I just want to be happy, and I just want to enjoy life. And I don't know why some people try to make things hard when they don't have to. And Lee always says to me that, I'm quite fiery anyway, but Lee always says to me, it's like the monkey in the keyboard, step away, like, when you've got the monkey mask on, step away from the keyboard, because it just comes, but, so yeah, but that's just me, and I'm what I am, how I feel at the time is what you'll get, and that translates into my music also.
I think that's the key. The sincerity, I think, doesn't always come from whether you are a sincere person or not. It's whether or not you're willing to share that with people. Everybody has happy days and sad days, and harsh thoughts and happy thoughts, but whether or not you're willing to share that. And that's what comes through with this. I don't hear in your voice that you're holding back. The timbre of your voice, the approach to everything.
Why do you do all the things you do to me? Why can't you see that I have feelings too? Don't you think that you might be out of line? Maybe I don't have the time. So this year is nearly over. Another journey around.
Alan, I really want to say thank you so much for taking all the time to chat with me. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the insight that you are willing to give into your whole process as well.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's good to speak. I can speak about this all day. You never have enough time. People always ask about, like I say, Ugly was the song. And we've discussed that. And I don't know. I just, like I said, I don't set out to write a song. I'm quite an observational songwriter. I'm probably more a storyteller, I think, than anything else. Maybe even more than a musician. I'm just a fan of music. I like listening to music. I always have done, and I've just kind of married the two together. So. Yeah.
The thing that I always ask people at the end of these interviews is, for all the questions that I've asked, is there a question that I didn't ask that you wish that I did?
No, I don't think so. I've just been happy to chat to you. It's been a good discussion. No, I think you've asked, good questions. I never come on with a preconceived idea or anything like that. I'll just chat I'll talk to anybody, man. You know what I mean? I'll talk to anybody.
Talking about music is so easy. We're going to run out of time. We have a few seconds left. So just thank you very much again. And I would love to chat with you again at some point.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. I'd love to chat to you again. And you take care, all right? And I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you. Thanks.
Right.
Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.